All right, we're back with part 2 of how Villalva won Chat Tournament 26. I think at the end of the last video I might have said how Akiyama won Chat Tournament 26 because I was going over to put in the cards for the next game and the name I saw on screen was Akiyama because he's going first here. So apologies because if I did say that, quite a fool here. That said, Akiyama starts in 3. Now, we've seen Villalva in the last video do a number of things against corner starters, and by a number of things, I mean we've seen him go in the opposite corner repeatedly. But once he went in 5. And I think an important thing to note is he specifically went in the opposite corner against weak corner starters. And I think that fits kind of how I described what you want out of an opposite corner play. If you can create a corner that is harder for them to take than they created with their corner, you often have the advantage, and he proved that game after game. So the question here, I should say there is no plus wall on. Just keep that in mind for this match, there's no plus wall. Here, this is a pretty strong corner that's hard to take. There's no opposite corner that has that effect, so Villalva doesn't do that here. Another thing we've seen him do is go in 5. He played that once in his victory against Piggy Man, and we've seen one adjacent corner when it was safe. Here, there's no adjacent corners that are safe. Something like this is closest, but that's not safe. Multiple reasons. So we've tended to see him go in far corners against weak corners, in adjacent corners if safe, and the one other situation he went in the center. But here he's going to pull another move out of his tool bag, but it fits with a previous thing we've seen, which is he will play in other squares when there is safety there. And here, Villalva grabs safety. Akiyama plays distant to the action, as he quite often does, but with another thing that is a corner there is some plays both way against. There is a capture here, but I assume there's a setup somewhere. Maybe here, and then 5-1-3-4 is a bomb in both 5 and 7. Yeah, that's dangerous to touch. So Villalva takes more safety. And I think while Villalva is often setting up combos, one thing he really looks for, as we saw with some of his side starters in the last video, is sort of making these walls of cards next to each other where they have high enough facing out that none of them can be captured. And I think this is probably Akiyama that has to be quite careful here. He goes 2-3-2-5 in 4. And this is good enough to tie. Villalva goes in 6, setting up a threat in 5. It turns out actually every move here is tied, and Akiyama goes for a nice combo setup here, and Villalva leaves him only comboing back his own cards. And we have 5-5 tie in the first game. I'd say probably slight advantage to second turn here, but pretty balanced. This is game 2 of Villalva's finals against Akiyama in Chat Tournament 26. And Villalva starts with another side starter. Again, when he sees paired cards, he is very likely to go for the side starter. Here, the pairing is 1-1-1-6 and 1-6-1-1 and 2-6-2-2. Akiyama grabs safety, and Villalva plays his paired move. And Akiyama sets up a threat in 5. And here, very interestingly, wow, okay, things going on here. Apparently, this position is just winning for Villalva a number of ways. I was assuming he would block 5, and apparently this does just win. Yeah, Akiyama's hand is really poor at this point. The 1-6-1-2 and the 1-4-1-2 do not make a good impression. Villalva plays a really curious move in 9. It's possible I put the game in wrong, but also it's possible this is very dangerous, right? Because if you go something like take safety in 8, then you're just dead. You don't actually have any captures, right? So how do you get your 1-4-1-2 and your 1-6-1-2 working here? If you make a capture, you're just getting comboed. You're getting comboed back, and you don't have the combo at the end. So actually, this is, again, controlling a lot of squares that it doesn't necessarily look like it should control. Okay, so technically this is missing a win, but actually it's really dangerous here. I'm going to guess that Akiyama's save is in 3. I'm incorrect. The only tying move, and the move he plays, Akiyama plays, is 1, 4, 1, 2, and 6. Very nice save. With the point that Villalva can only capture one card at a time there, and when he does, Akiyama has set up this threat in 5. So Villalva blocks 5, but now Akiyama has also set up 3 and gets the tie. So pretty miraculous save from Akiyama. One thing to note is this tournament, Villalva has never been in serious danger. I think the closest he came was a game against Piggy where he was on first turn, the one where he started 8-5, 8-4, and 5, but he calmed that very quickly. He's actually been winning a much higher percentage of games than he's won, but this is to say he is clearly outplaying his opponents in the early middle game. Or in this one, Akiyama's hand was pretty terrible, but I think in general he is outplaying his opponents in the early middle game, and he's not always converting off it, but he is very often creating chances off it. And I do think that's the more important indicator of performance, actually. So game 3, Akiyama has a pretty, Villalva has a pretty miserable hand. He's the first turn player here, and we see a whole lot of 1s facing up. My instinct would be to chuck something in a weak corner, but Villalva doesn't really play like that. He's really not corner oriented. It's a very different style than I'm used to. He drops a card in 5. Akiyama plays in 9, using the fact that Villalva has no capture there from 8. And here's another thing Villalva does that I think is really interesting. If he doesn't have a square, he removes it from the board. Because if you're a combo-focused player and you leave yourself with a dead square for like last turn, at some point they'll force you to play in the dead square, and he often just gets rid of it. And we saw that when in one of the previous games when Villalva started in 3, when Akiyama started in 3, Villalva played safely in 2. But one thing he did there was it wasn't just grabbing safety, it was also saying, I never have any play in 3, let's just get rid of it. Here, he never has any play in 8, so he just gets rid of it. Now, this is the first time in the tournament he has been losing. Apparently, this does lose. And I have no idea why Akiyama went for this fancy move. I guess it's technically just safe, but it actually gives Villalva a chance to survive. A winning move. Okay, that's not easy to find. Is there a conventional winning move? There's a win in 2. There's a win in 3. No, the wins are in 2 and 3. Okay, that's hard to find. All right, if the wins aren't in 6 or 7, then this is a fantastic defensive try with a really tough hand. And when Akiyama grabs safety in 4, Villalva can build out his own in 6. Walking into big combos, but not afraid of them because he has calculated it out. Villalva goes in 7. The combo doesn't hit, not a big combo, doesn't hit anything extra. Akiyama can go 3, and 1, 4, 4, 3 is sufficient to hold this game. Ooh, great defense there. I see 8, I ask the solver, it says this loses to 3 different moves, but not trivial moves to find or consider. I think even against the best players like Akiyama, Villalva is saving this game more often than not, which is pretty remarkable again, given that his hand was absolutely steamy garbage. So this is the first time Villalva has actually been in trouble, but it seems like he found a pretty great defense, and I think the concept of just get rid of a square that's dead to you is a really important one to keep in mind. So we're in game 4 of the finals now. Akiyama has first turn, and he starts with a weak corner in 3. At this point, I think we should have a pretty good feel for what Villalva likes to do. Against weak corners, he quite likes opposite corners, but if he has safety, he'll often go for the safety. Now, he doesn't quite have safety here, but he does go for the big corner in the neighboring corner, saying this is really hard for you to take. Yes, you have a way to take it, but I can pretty comfortably lock it back in. Akiyama blocks 6, which I think is the standard and probably correct thing to do here. And now Villalva has his choice of how to build out an L. He chooses this one, creating a nice threat in 5. And probably Akiyama has to be pretty careful here. Akiyama allows the threat in 5, which locks in a whole bunch of cards, but he has calculated it out, and he does save the position with 3-5-1-2 as a sufficient side-to-side sweeper to hold the tie. Not too much to say about this one. I think nice calculation by Akiyama at the end, and Villalva got some nice initiative that was counteracted by a good calculation. And that's game 4, which brings us to game 5. Not sure where I cut off what I was saying at the end, but I tried to say which brings us to game 5, but I pressed pause at the same time, so maybe it got cut off, and maybe I sound like a fool now. It happens. So this game is the 5th game they've played. Villalva has first turn, and he again chucks a card in 5. Akiyama plays in 3, and we can see he is setting up synergies with 4-2-1-4 in 2, as well as with 1-2-6-2 in 6, which notably would be safe. Villalva also has play in 6, but does not have so much play in 2, and thus if Akiyama gets to 6 first, that 1-2-6-2 is going to play pretty well. So he takes 6, but this looks kind of ridiculous, because Akiyama combos everything. Villalva doesn't really have captures back. He doesn't have 9. He doesn't have 1. This is horrendous. He doesn't have a move in 7 that can set him up both ways. Sure, he can set up one way, a couple ways, but he can't set up to have both ways, right? This sets up to have 8, the others all set up to have 4, but he can't set up to have both, and that's going to give Akiyama enough time to block it. So this is a pretty huge concession. And this is actually the game that we were talking about that inspired me to make this video, because I mentioned in another video that I had made a video about this game, and it turns out I never did. And I think it's a pretty fascinating game, because Villalva set a huge trap here when he played in 6. I think a really remarkable high-level trap, because 4-2-1-4 is so obviously desirable for Akiyama and looks so devastating to Villalva's position. But Villalva had seen it doesn't work. Now, 14 of Villalva's 15 moves lose here, but one of them wins. And I think this is one of the better traps I've ever seen, and maybe one of the greatest games Villalva's played, at least that we have records of, because I think this move in 6 looks like such a huge concession, right? You're giving up the card in 6. You're kind of giving up the card in 2. You're giving up the card in 3. You barely have play against 5. For this to be a winning position, I think is remarkable. And the key to it is that Akiyama only has 1s and 2s facing up. And so Villalva does play a setup move in 7, setting up this huge combo threat in 4, but Akiyama can just block it. The problem is, he doesn't have a block. This is what Villalva saw at a big distance, that, again, this combo feel, this combo sensitivity that Villalva saw playing 6, that Akiyama could not block for. That anything Akiyama plays in 4 here walks into the combo, right? And that despite Villalva only having 2 cards in his hand, if he gets to play 1, 4, 2, 4, and 4, he's going to win the game. And so Akiyama must block it this turn, and on this turn, Villalva has both 1s and 2s covered. He won't next turn. One of them will be out of his hand, but he won't need to next turn. And I think this is a really magnificent trap. He just pulls it against a top-tier player. Akiyama blocks 8, and Villalva grabs 4. Akiyama had set up a little play back, but it is not enough. This is still down 6-4. In fact, he does it this way, but this is also still down 6-4. And Villalva wins. And Villalva wins Chat Tournament 26. playing 8 games against Piggyman, 5 against Akiyama, being winning between those games 6 or 7 times, and only being lost once. And that's a pretty dominant performance against really strong players. Ends up taking the tournament, and I think this move in 6 is beautiful. It's just a tremendous move, appearing to concede so much. Now, it should be said, there are a whole bunch of moves for Akiyama that tie here. But Villalva sets this incredible trap. It's not losing, and it looks like it loses, right? It looks like this is so crushing against it. And there's the faintest whiff of counterplay, but it should never be enough. But Villalva knew it was enough, and knew it was enough from a few moves ago. So I think a really special game, and I hope to keep finding special games like this as we go through the other chat tournaments and see winners. I started with 26. I think we'll do 27 next, and just count up to the present day, and then start going back into previous ones. But yeah, this is how Villalva won Chat Tournament 26. He won it playing moves like this. And that's a pretty damn cool way to win it.